The stars looked peaceful through the viewing window of the small research vessel. Admiral Daesung stood there, his old hands clasped behind his back, watching the distant lights. He was 73 years old now, with silver hair and deep lines on his face. The uniform he once wore with pride was gone, replaced by simple civilian clothes. He had retired from military service 5 years ago, but his eyes still held the sharp awareness of a soldier. "Grandfather, we're approaching the outer rim sector," a young voice called from behind him. Daesung turned to see his granddaughter, Hee-jin, working at the navigation console. She was 26, bright and eager, serving as the navigator on this small diplomatic mission. Her dark hair was tied back in a neat ponytail, and she wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's research division. Daesung smiled at her. "Good. How long until we reach the coordinates?" "About 3 hours," Hee-jin replied, checking her screens. "The survey team on Kepler Station is waiting for our data on the mineral deposits." The research vessel was small, carrying only 5 crew members. Besides Daesung and Hee-jin, there was Tae-won, the engineer, a quiet man in his 40s who could fix anything. Soo-min was the ship's doctor, a gentle woman with steady hands and a calm voice. Ki-jun was their pilot, young and talented, with reflexes that made him one of the best flyers in the research fleet. It was supposed to be a simple mission. Travel to the outer rim, collect data, return home. Nothing dangerous, nothing complicated. Daesung had agreed to come along as an advisor, using his years of experience to guide the young crew. His late wife, Bo-ra, had always said he couldn't stay away from space for long. She had been right. The alarm came without warning. Red lights flashed across every console, and a sharp beeping sound filled the cabin. Ki-jun's voice came over the intercom, tense and urgent. "We have multiple contacts. Large ships moving to intercept." Daesung moved quickly to the command console, his old instincts taking over. On the scanner, he saw them. 6 massive vessels, each one 10 times the size of their small research ship. The designs were alien, nothing like human ships. Long, curved hulls covered in strange symbols that glowed with purple light. "Can we outrun them?" Daesung asked, his voice calm despite the situation. Ki-jun shook his head, even though the old admiral couldn't see him from the cockpit. "Negative. They're too fast, and they've already surrounded us. I'm getting a signal. They want us to power down our engines." Daesung looked at the scanner again. His military mind calculated the odds quickly. 6 warships against 1 unarmed research vessel. No weapons, no shield strong enough to matter, no chance of escape. He had been in bad situations before, but this was different. This was not a human enemy. This was something else. "Power down the engines," Daesung ordered. "No one does anything threatening. We're researchers, not soldiers." Hee-jin looked at her grandfather with worry in her eyes. "Who are they?" "The Galactic Council," Daesung said quietly. "I've heard rumors about them. They're the ones who've been watching us, keeping us confined to our part of space." The crew gathered in the main cabin as the alien ships drew closer. Through the window they could see one of the massive vessels moving alongside them. A beam of bright blue light shot out from the alien ship, wrapping around their vessel like a rope. They felt a slight pull, and then they were moving, being dragged toward the larger ship. Tae-won checked his engineering console. "They've got us in a tractor beam." "I can't break free." "Don't try," Daesung said. "Let them bring us in. Stay calm, all of you. Remember, we're civilians on a peaceful mission. We've done nothing wrong." But Daesung's mind was already working through possibilities. The Galactic Council had been a mystery to humanity for decades. Ever since humans had developed faster-than-light travel and begun exploring beyond the solar system, they had encountered strange barriers. Energy fields that their ships couldn't cross. Entire sectors of space that seemed closed off. And occasionally, glimpses of alien ships watching from a distance. Earth's government had tried many times to make contact, to open communication with whoever was out there. Every attempt had been ignored. Humanity was alone in the galaxy, or so it seemed. But Daesung had always known the truth. They weren't alone. They were being kept isolated like children locked in a room while the adults talked outside. The research vessel was pulled into the massive alien ship through a large opening in its hull. They landed in what looked like a docking bay, surrounded by strange technology and more alien vessels. When the engines finally shut down completely, the cabin fell silent. "What do we do now?" Soo-min asked softly. "We wait," Daesung replied, "and we watch. Learn everything you can about them." They didn't have to wait long. The airlock door opened with a hiss and figures appeared. They were not human. The first one through the door stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and a body covered in what looked like dark blue armor. Its head was insect-like with multiple eyes that glowed yellow. Behind it came others, different species, different shapes, but all of them carried weapons. The lead alien spoke, and somehow the words were translated into a language they could understand. "You are prisoners of the Galactic Council. You will come with us. Do not resist." Dae-sung stepped forward, placing himself between the aliens and his crew. "We are peaceful researchers from Earth. We've committed no crime. Why are you holding us?" The insect-like alien tilted its head, studying the old human. "You are human. That is reason enough. You will come with us to Valoris Prime. The Council wishes to speak with you." There was no room for argument. Armed guards surrounded them as they were led off their ship and through the corridors of the alien vessel. Dae-sung kept his crew close, making sure none of them did anything that might be seen as hostile. Hae-jin stayed near her grandfather, her hand finding his. He squeezed it gently, trying to give her courage. The corridors were strange and beautiful, made of materials that seemed to shift colors as they walked. They passed other aliens, dozens of different species, all of them stopping to stare at the human prisoners. Some looked curious. Others looked disgusted. A few looked afraid. They were brought to a holding area and placed in a large cell with transparent walls. The furnishings were basic but functional. There were places to sleep, a small area for washing, and a table with strange food that none of them recognized. As the guards left and the cell door sealed behind them, the 5 humans gathered together. Taewon immediately began examining the walls, looking for any weakness. Ki-jun paced back and forth like a caged animal. Sumin sat down, taking deep breaths to stay calm. Hee-jin stood close to her grandfather. "What's going to happen to us?" she asked. Dae-sung looked out through the transparent wall at the alien ship around them. His face was calm, but his mind was racing. He had spent 50 years in the military, fighting in conflicts across the solar system. He had seen war, death, and suffering. He had led soldiers into battle and brought most of them home. But this was something new. This was first contact gone wrong. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "But whatever happens, we face it together. We represent humanity now, whether we wanted to or not. We show them who we are." Outside the cell, the alien ship began to move, carrying them away from human space and toward an unknown destination. Dae-sung stood at the transparent wall, watching the stars stream past, and wondered what waited for them at the end of this journey. He thought of Bora, of his children back on Earth, of the life he had retired to. That peaceful life seemed very far away now. The capture was complete. Now came the unknown. The journey to Valoris Prime took 3 days. During that time, Dae-sung and his crew were kept in their cell with minimal contact. Food arrived through a slot in the wall, strange meals that tasted like nothing they had ever eaten before. The guards who brought it never spoke to them. They only stared with their alien eyes, watching the humans like specimens in a laboratory. Dae-sung spent the time observing everything. He watched the guards' patterns, counted the hours between their shifts, studied the layout of the ship through their transparent cell walls. Old habits from his military days. Hae-jin noticed and understood. Her grandfather was always thinking, always planning. On the morning of the 4th day, the guards came for them. The insect-like alien from before, whose name they learned was Thulvan, led a group of armed soldiers to their cell. "It is time," he said in his translated voice. "The council awaits you." They were led through more corridors, these ones larger and more decorated than the ship's interior. They had arrived at Valoris Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. Through windows, they caught glimpses of massive towers reaching into purple skies, and cities that stretched as far as they could see. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The Grand Council chamber was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It was enormous, a vast amphitheater that could hold thousands. Seats rose in circular tiers around a central platform, and in those seats sat representatives from dozens of alien species. Some looked like reptiles, others like birds. Some were made of what appeared to be living crystal. The variety was stunning, and they were all staring at the 5 humans being led to the central platform. Dae-sung walked with his head held high, his crew following his example. They climbed the steps to the platform, and a force field activated around them, keeping them contained. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes watched them. Tulvan took his place in one of the prominent seats near the center. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the entire chamber. Members of the Galactic Council, I present to you the humans, captured in our space, violating the boundaries we established decades ago. A murmur went through the crowd. Daesung stepped forward. We violated no boundaries. We were conducting peaceful research in neutral space. We are explorers, not invaders. Tulvan's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. Neutral space? There is no neutral space. All of this galaxy belongs to the Council, and we have deemed your species unworthy to join us. Another alien stood up, this one reptilian with green scales and sharp teeth. His name appeared on a holographic display above him as Vexillara. Unworthy is too kind a word. Look at them, members of the Council. Look at these creatures. They are violent, aggressive, and primitive. They have no place among civilized species. Heejin's hands clenched into fists, but Daesung placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Not yet. Let them talk. Tulvan gestured, and holographic displays appeared above the platform. Images from Earth's history. Humans fighting each other with primitive weapons, cities burning, explosions from bombs and missiles. The images came faster. World War I, World War II, nuclear weapons exploding over cities, tanks rolling through streets, soldiers killing other soldiers. This is your species, Tulvan declared. You fight among yourselves constantly. You create weapons of mass destruction. You poison your own planet. You kill each other over resources, over beliefs, over lines drawn on maps. This is what you are. This is why we keep you isolated. The chamber erupted in agreement. Aliens of all kinds nodded, clicked, buzzed, and vocalized their support. The humans were savages. The humans were dangerous. The humans must be contained. Taewan stepped forward, anger on his face. Those images are from our past. We've grown beyond that. We've united. We've built a peaceful society across our solar system. A crystalline being identified as Ralmoth spoke next. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. Peaceful? Your species has only been unified for 150 of your years. We have species here that have known peace for 10,000 years. You are children playing at civilization. Another alien laughed, a sound like grinding stone. And such weak children. Look at their biology. They need specific gases to breathe, specific temperatures to survive. They live barely a century if they are lucky. They have no natural armor, no natural weapons. They are fragile things that break easily. More laughter echoed through the chamber. Sumin's face flushed red, but she remained silent. Kijun looked like he wanted to say something but held back. They all looked to Daesung, waiting for his lead. The old admiral stood quietly, his face showing no emotion. He simply watched and listened. He was learning about these aliens, about their arrogance, about their certainty in their own superiority. It reminded him of enemies he had faced before, enemies who underestimated humanity. Vexillara stood again, his reptilian features twisted in what looked like disgust. I have studied the humans extensively. Do you know how they travel through space? They use chemical rockets. Chemical rockets!
Technology we abandoned thousands of years ago.
They crawl from planet to planet like insects, slow and inefficient. Their weapons are equally primitive, another council member added. Kinetic projectiles fired by explosive propellants. Their most powerful weapons are crude nuclear devices that irradiate everything around them. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no understanding of quantum mechanics beyond basic theory. Tulvan raised one of his 4 arms for silence. The evidence is clear. Humanity is a plague that must be contained. They spread violence wherever they go. Left unchecked, they would bring war to our peaceful galaxy. Therefore, the Council has already decided on a course of action. The holographic display changed. It showed Earth, the blue and green planet that the humans called home. Around it, a red grid appeared, expanding outward to encompass the entire solar system and beyond. We will establish a quantum barrier around your system, Tulvan explained. Nothing will get in or out. You will be quarantined, locked away from civilized space forever. Your species will be allowed to live, but you will never leave your prison. You will never threaten the peace of the galaxy. Heejin couldn't stay quiet anymore. You can't do this. We have rights. We have done nothing wrong. Tulvan's multiple eyes focused on her. Rights? You speak of rights? Rights are earned through civilization, through proving your species deserves a place among the stars. You have proven only that you are dangerous. She's right, though, Kijun said, stepping forward. You're judging us based on our past, not our present. Yes, we fought wars. Yes, we made mistakes. But we learned, we grew, we changed. A bird-like alien with rainbow feathers spoke up. Change? You claim change after only a century? We have watched your species. You still maintain military forces. You still build weapons. You still prepare for war even in your so-called peace. Because we're not stupid. Taewon shot back. We prepare for threats. We've learned that the universe isn't always peaceful. You're proving that right now by imprisoning innocent researchers. The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Many council members stood up, shouting in their various languages. The translator struggled to keep up with all the voices, but the meaning was clear. They were offended. They were angry. How dare these primitive humans speak back to them? Daesung finally spoke, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. You speak of our wars. You speak of our violence. You judge us for our history. But let me ask you something. Why do you need weapons? Why do you have warships that patrol your space? Why do you have armies if you are so peaceful? The chamber fell silent. Thulvan's mandibles clicked slowly. We maintain order. We protect the galaxy from threats like you. No, Daesung said calmly. You maintain control. You have built an empire and you call it a council. You force others to submit to your rules. And you call it civilization. You imprison anyone who doesn't bow to you, and you call it protection. I have seen this before. We have words for what you are. Careful, old human, Vexillara hissed. You are in no position to make threats. I'm not making threats, Daesung replied. I'm making observations. You brought us here to humiliate us, to show your power. You didn't bring us here for justice or dialogue. You brought us here to display your superiority. But superiority is proven through actions, not words. And your actions tell me everything I need to know about you. Thulvan stood up to his full height, towering over the platform. You dare lecture us? Your species is nothing. You are isolated, alone, weak. You have no allies, no power, no voice in this galaxy. We could exterminate you if we wished. The only reason we don't is mercy. Daesung looked up at the massive insect-like alien without fear. His 73 years had taught him many things, and one of them was how to recognize bullies. If you wanted to exterminate us, you would have done it already. You don't quarantine things you can easily destroy. You quarantine things you're afraid of. The chamber exploded in outrage. Council members shouted, gestured, and demanded the human be silenced. Heejin grabbed her grandfather's arm, worried he had gone too far. But Daesung remained calm, watching as the council revealed their true nature. Thulvan raised his arms again, commanding silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke with cold precision. You speak of fear? The silence in the Grand Council chamber felt heavy. Thousands of alien eyes watched the small group of humans on the central platform, waiting for their response. Thulvan stood tall, his forearms crossed, confident that the humans would accept his terms. What choice did they have? Daesung looked at his crew. Heejin's face showed worry and anger mixed together. Taewon's jaw was clenched tight. Kijun looked ready to fight, even though there was nowhere to run. Suman's gentle eyes met his, and he saw the question there. What do we do? The old admiral turned back to face the council. His body felt the weight of his 73 years, but his mind was sharp and clear. He thought of his late wife, Bora, and the conversations they used to have on quiet evenings. She had always asked him the hard questions. What would you do if you met aliens? What if they were hostile? What if they wanted to control us? He had always told her the same thing. Humanity didn't look for fights, but they didn't run from them either. Your offer, Daesung said slowly, his voice carrying across the massive chamber, is not an offer at all. You want us to give up our freedom, our independence, our right to defend ourselves. You want us to become your subjects, controlled and monitored like animals in a zoo. Thulvan's mandibles clicked. We want you to become civilized, to join the galactic community under proper supervision. No, Daesung said simply. You want us to submit? There's a difference. Vexillara, the reptilian, hissed from his seat. You foolish creature. You have no power here. No allies, no fleet. Your entire species is confined to one small system. We have thousands of worlds, millions of ships, billions of soldiers. You are one old man standing against the entire galaxy. Accept our mercy while it is still offered. Daesung smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something others didn't. You know what's interesting? You keep talking about your power, your numbers, your ships, your technology. You remind me of someone I fought against many years ago. Another one of your primitive wars. Ralmoth the crystalline being chimed in mockingly. Yes, Daesung nodded. The Mars Rebellion about 40 years ago. There was a faction that wanted to break away from Earth, establish their own independent state. They had better weapons than us, better ships. They controlled the high ground on Mars. They thought they had already won before the fighting even started. He paused, looking around at the council members. They made a mistake, though. They assumed that superior technology and numbers meant automatic victory. They forgot that wars are not won by weapons alone. They're won by will, by determination, by the willingness to pay any price for freedom. Ancient history, Thulvan dismissed. Your internal squabbles mean nothing here. They mean everything here, Daesung countered. Because you're making the same mistake they did. You think you know us. You've watched us from a distance, seen our wars, studied our weapons. You think you understand humanity. But you don't. Yijin stepped closer to her grandfather, understanding starting to dawn on her face. The other crew members moved closer too, forming a line behind the old admiral. They didn't fully understand what he was doing, but they trusted him. You showed us images of our wars, Daesung continued. You used them to prove how violent and savage we are, but you didn't ask why we fought those wars. You didn't try to understand the context. Context? Another council member, a being that looked like floating gas contained in a force field, spoke up. War is war. Violence is violence. There is no context that justifies it. Daesung shook his head. We fought wars to stop tyrants, to protect the weak, to defend freedom against those who would take it away. Yes, we made mistakes. Yes, we hurt each other, but we learned, we grew, we became better. And yet you still maintain weapons, Thulvan pointed out. You still have military forces. You still prepare for violence. Because we learned another lesson too, Daesung said quietly. We learned that peace is not maintained by wishful thinking. It's maintained by strength, by readiness, by making sure that anyone who wants to take your freedom knows it will cost them dearly. The chamber erupted in angry sounds again. Council members shouted their displeasure. How dare this human speak to them this way? How dare he refuse to recognize their superiority? Thulvan raised his arms for silence. When he spoke, his voice was cold with fury. You speak of strength? You have no strength. You have nothing. Your refusal to accept our offer changes nothing. We will proceed with the quarantine. Your species will be locked away, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Then why are we here? Taewon suddenly spoke up. If you've already decided, if you have all the power, why bring us here at all? Why this whole performance? The question hung in the air. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Daesung nodded slowly, proud of his engineer for seeing the truth. He's right, the old admiral said. You didn't bring us here because you've already decided. You brought us here because you're uncertain. You're afraid of something. You're trying to convince yourselves as much as us. We fear nothing from you, Vexillara declared, but there was something in his voice now, something that didn't sound quite as confident. Then let me tell you what you should fear, Daesung said, his voice growing harder. You should fear what happens when you back a species into a corner. You should fear what humans become when they have nothing left to lose. You should fear the fact that every war we've ever fought, every conflict in our history taught us one thing above all else. He paused, letting the silence build. The entire chamber was listening now, waiting. We taught ourselves how to survive against impossible odds. We taught ourselves how to win when victory seemed impossible. We taught ourselves that the size of the army doesn't matter as much as the strength of the will behind it. Thulvan leaned forward on his seat, his multiple eyes fixed on the old human. Are you threatening us, old man? Are you suggesting that your primitive species could stand against the Galactic Council? That you could fight a war against us? The moment hung there, balanced on a knife's edge. Daesung thought of his children back on Earth. His son, Jae-hyun, who worked as a teacher. His daughter, Yoonji, who was a botanist studying plant life on Europa. He thought of all the humans living their peaceful lives, unaware that at this moment, the fate of their entire species was being decided. He thought of Bora, and what she would say if she were here. She would tell him to be brave, to stand up, to never bow to bullies no matter how big they were. I'm not suggesting anything, Daesung said quietly. I'm stating a fact. You want to lock us away. You want to imprison an entire species. You think you can do this without consequences. Thulvan stood up fully now, towering over the platform. His voice echoed through the chamber. Consequences? What consequences? You have no power here. You are prisoners. Your ship is in our hands. Your people are trapped in their system. What can you possibly do? Daesung looked up at the massive alien, meeting his multiple eyes without fear. His voice was steady, calm, and absolutely certain. You want war with the Galactic Council? Thullivan demanded, leaning forward. Is that what you're suggesting, old man? That your species would dare to fight us? The chamber fell completely silent. Every alien in the vast amphitheater was watching now, waiting for the humans' response. Hyojin held her breath. Tae-Wan, Ki-jun, and Su-Min stood frozen, understanding that this moment would define everything that came next. Daesung's face was calm, but his eyes were hard as steel. When he spoke, his words carried across the chamber with absolute clarity. You want war? We will give you war. The silence that followed was absolute. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Then Thullivan laughed. It was a horrible sound, his mandibles clicking rapidly. Other council members joined in. The chamber filled with alien laughter, mocking and cruel. You? Thullivan managed to say between laughs. You will give us war? 1 old man and 5 crew members will wage war against the entire Galactic Council? This is the most amusing thing I have heard in decades. But not all the council members were laughing. Some sat quietly, studying the humans with new eyes. Daesung noticed them, noticed the ones who looked uncertain, worried, thoughtful. Good. At least some of them were smart enough to question. Take them away, Thullivan ordered, waving one of his arms dismissively. Put them in the holding cells. They can think about their foolish words while we prepare the quarantine. Guards moved forward, surrounding the platform. Daesung didn't resist as they were led away. Neither did his crew. They walked with their heads held high, leaving the council chamber behind. As they went, Daesung could hear the discussion starting, arguments breaking out among the council members. They were led down through corridors, deeper into the massive structure. The cells here were more secure, clearly designed for dangerous prisoners. Each human was placed in a separate cell, transparent walls allowing them to see each other but not to touch or speak directly. As the guard sealed his cell and walked away, Daesung sat down on the simple bench. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. What he had done was dangerous, possibly foolish. He had declared war on behalf of all humanity, without authority, without permission, without knowing if Earth could even fight such a war. The broadcast reached Earth 72 hours after Daesung spoke those fateful words. It traveled through space at the speed of light, carrying with it the image of an old man standing before an alien council, declaring war on behalf of humanity. On Earth, in the capital city of New Geneva, President Namgil was in the middle of a routine meeting when his chief advisor burst into the room. The woman's face was pale, her hands shaking as she held up a data pad. Sir, you need to see this now. Namgil took the pad and watched. He saw Daesung, a man he knew personally, a decorated veteran and hero. He watched as the Galactic Council mocked humanity, showed their wars, demanded submission. And then he heard those words, "You want war? We will give you war." The room fell silent as everyone watched. When the broadcast ended, Namgil set down the pad carefully. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. He looked at the people around him, his advisors, his cabinet, the military officials who had joined the meeting. "Get me Fleet Admiral Youngjia," he said quietly, "and activate the emergency protocols, all of them." Across Earth, on Mars, on Europa, Titan, and every human settlement in the solar system, people watched the same broadcast. They saw one of their own standing up to beings who thought themselves superior. They heard him refuse to bow. They heard him declare war, and they understood what that meant. In the Deep Space Command Center orbiting Saturn, Fleet Admiral Youngjia stood before a massive tactical display. She was 58 years old, a veteran of the colony wars and one of the most respected military minds in human history. Her short gray hair was neat, her uniform crisp, and her eyes sharp as she studied the display. "Show me everything we have," she ordered. The tactical officer, a young man named Dongwu, brought up the data. On the display, markers appeared throughout the solar system, ships, hundreds of them. They had been hidden in asteroid fields on the dark side of moons in the shadows of planets, waiting. "The home fleet is fully operational," Dongwu reported. 312 vessels, all at combat readiness. Stealth systems are functioning. They still don't know we're here. Youngja nodded slowly. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Ever since they first realized they were being watched, being studied, being judged by unknown aliens, the governments of Earth had made a decision. They would appear weak, primitive, confined. They would let the watchers think humans were nothing special. And while the aliens watched, humanity had been building, learning, preparing. "What's the status of Project Helios?" Youngja asked. A weapons officer, a woman named Mi-sun, pulled up another display. "All plasma weapon systems are online and tested. Power output exceeds estimates by 15%. The new generation can punch through energy shields that our intelligence suggests the Council uses. Project Phantom, stealth technology is performing beyond expectations," another officer reported. "Our ships are effectively invisible to standard Council sensors. They won't see us coming until we want them to." Youngja allowed herself a small smile. The alien council thought humans used primitive chemical rockets. They thought human weapons were crude kinetic projectiles and old nuclear devices. They had no idea what humanity had really been building. "And Project Olympus?" she asked. "Quantum communication network is fully operational," a communications officer named Jinho confirmed. "Every ship, every station, every settlement is connected. Real-time communication across the entire solar system. The aliens can't intercept or block it." Youngja took a deep breath. There was one more project, one that she hoped they would never need to use. "What about Project Ragnarok?" The room fell silent. Everyone knew what Ragnarok was. It was humanity's final contingency, the weapon of last resort, something so powerful, so terrible that its very existence was classified at the highest level. "Standing by," a quiet voice said from the back of the room. "Ready to activate on your command." "Keep it ready," Youngja said. "But we don't use it unless there's no other choice. Are we clear?" Everyone nodded. Ragnarok was the option you never wanted to take. Youngja turned back to the main display. "Send a priority message to all fleet commanders. Tell them to prepare for immediate action. And get me a secure line to the president." Meanwhile, on Europa, in a research facility buried beneath kilometers of ice, scientists were gathering. Among them was Yunji, Daesung's daughter. She was 45 years old, dedicated to her work studying alien plant samples that had been secretly acquired over the years. She had just finished watching her father's broadcast for the third time when her supervisor found her. "Unji," the woman said gently. "I'm sorry. I know that must be hard to watch." Yunji wiped her eyes. He knew exactly what he was doing. "My father never acts without thinking. If he declared war, it's because he believed we could win it. Can we?" "I don't know," Yunji admitted. "But I know my father. He wouldn't sacrifice himself and his crew unless he believed it meant something, unless he thought it would give us a chance." Back on Earth in a classroom in Tokyo, Jae-hyun was teaching history to a group of teenagers when the emergency broadcast interrupted. His students watched in silence as an old man, their teacher's father, stood before alien judges and refused to submit. When it ended, one of his students spoke up. "Teacher Jae-hyun, is that really your father?" "Yes," Jae-hyun said quietly. "Is he going to be okay?" Jae-hyun looked at his students, these young people who had grown up in a time of peace, who knew war only from history books. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but he's doing what he thinks is right, what he thinks is necessary to protect all of us." Another student raised her hand. "Are we really going to fight aliens? A whole war?" Before Jae-hyun could answer, the classroom's communication system activated. The principal's voice came through, calm but firm. "All teachers and students, please remain calm. The government has issued a statement. We are to continue our normal activities unless otherwise instructed. There is no immediate danger." But everyone knew that had changed. Everything had changed. In the deep space station orbiting Neptune, a small team of engineers worked on something that didn't officially exist. Their leader, a man named Sang-woo, studied the massive weapon they had been building in secret for 20 years. "We've been waiting a long time for this," his assistant said. "I was hoping we'd never need it," Sang-woo replied. "But Admiral Dae-sung just gave us the signal. Whether he meant to or not, the weapon was enormous, built into an asteroid that had been hollowed out and converted into a mobile weapons platform. It used technology that humanity had developed by studying the energy barriers the aliens had placed around certain sectors of space. They had learned, adapted, and improved on what they found. How long until we can fire? Sang-woo asked. 6 hours to full power, his assistant replied. But sir, are we sure about this? If we use this weapon, there's no going back. There's already no going back, Sang-woo said quietly. The moment Admiral Dae-sung spoke those words, we crossed a line. Now we either follow through or we watch humanity get locked away forever. Back in the command center at Saturn, Fleet Admiral Young-ja was speaking directly with President Nam-gil via quantum communication. Their conversation was private, secure, and brief. Are we really doing this? Nam-gil asked. Are we really going to war with an alien empire that spans the galaxy? They didn't give us a choice, Young-ja replied. They want to imprison us. Lock us away like animals. Admiral Dae-sung did what needed to be done. He gave them an ultimatum. Can we win? I don't know, Young-ja admitted. But I know we can make them regret starting this fight. And I know that if we don't stand up now, we'll regret it forever. Nam-gil was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Do what you need to do, Admiral. You have full authorization. Protect humanity. Show them who we are. The communication ended. Young-ja turned to her command staff. All ships, battle stations, begin moving into position. I want the home fleet ready to engage within 12 hours. What about the Council fleet? Dong-woo asked. Intelligence reports they're already moving toward our system. Good, Young-ja said with a cold smile. Let them come. It's time to teach the Galactic Council a lesson they won't forget. Across the solar system, human ships began to move. They emerged from hiding places that had concealed them for decades. Stealth systems activated, making them invisible to the sensors that the Council relied on. Weapons powered up, new technology that the aliens didn't know existed. On Valoris Prime in his cell, Dae-sung sat quietly. He couldn't see what was happening back home, but he knew. He knew that his message had been received. He knew that humanity would respond. He had faith in his people, in their strength, in their will to survive. Hae-jin, in the cell next to his, managed to catch his eye through the transparent walls. She looked scared but determined. Dae-sung gave her a small nod, a gesture of reassurance. They had done what they needed to do. They had bought humanity time. They had given them warning. Now it was up to Earth, Mars, and all the humans scattered across their solar system to decide what came next. In the Grand Council chamber, Thulvan was beginning to realize that perhaps he had made a mistake. His intelligence officers were reporting unusual activity in the human system. Energy signatures that didn't match their profiles of human technology. Movement of ships. The Council fleet entered the solar system with confidence. 150 warships, each one massive and powerful, carrying weapons that had kept peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. They moved in formation, their shields glowing with energy, their weapons charged and ready. Admiral Vexillara commanded the fleet from his flagship, a vessel called the Eternal Justice. On his tactical display, he could see the human system spread out before him. The small yellow sun, the planets orbiting it, and somewhere among them, the primitive humans who had dared to challenge the Council. Begin scanning for human vessels, he ordered. Find their fleet. His sensor officer, a being with multiple tentacles, worked the controls. Sir, I'm detecting unusual readings throughout the system. Energy signatures that don't match our database. Ignore them, Vexillara said dismissively. Probably industrial facilities or power stations. Focus on finding their ships. But the sensor officer looked worried. Sir, these readings are moving. And they're surrounding us. Vexillara turned to look at the display. What he saw made his blood run cold. All around his fleet, markers were appearing. Ships. Hundreds of them. They had been there all along, invisible, waiting. Impossible, he whispered. How did they hide from our sensors? He got his answer a moment later, when Fleet Admiral Young-ja's voice came through on an open channel. Broadcast to every Council ship in the system. Council Fleet, this is Admiral Young-ja of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered our system uninvited and with hostile intent. You have imprisoned our people and threatened our freedom. This is your only warning. Turn back now or we will defend ourselves. Vexillara recovered from his shock quickly. He activated his own communication. This is Admiral Vexillara of the Galactic Council. You are surrounded and outnumbered. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our shields. Surrender now and we will show mercy. There was a pause. Then Young-ja's voice came back and there was something like amusement in it. Primitive weapons? Let me show you something. The human fleet opened fire. But these were not the kinetic projectiles and nuclear weapons the Council expected. These were plasma beams, concentrated energy that burned through space like miniature stars. They were railguns that fired projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. They were missiles with antimatter warheads that released energy the Council hadn't seen in centuries. The first volley hit 3 Council ships. Their shields flickered, strained, and collapsed. The ships themselves were torn apart, venting atmosphere and bodies into the cold vacuum of space. Vexillara stared in shock. That's impossible. Our shields are designed to withstand anything. Return fire, he ordered. All ships, engage the enemy. The Council fleet opened fire with their own weapons. Energy beams lanced out, striking at the human ships. But the humans were moving, dodging, using tactics that the Council had never seen before. And when the Council weapons did hit, they found that human ships had shields too. Shields that absorbed and deflected the attacks. The battle was nothing like what Vexillara had expected. The humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They didn't form neat lines or follow predictable patterns. They swarmed, attacked from multiple angles, used the asteroids and moons as cover. They were fast, aggressive, and terrifyingly effective. "Sir, we've lost 12 ships," his tactical officer reported. "The humans are using advanced technology. Our intelligence was completely wrong." "I can see that," Vexillara snarled. "Focus fire on their command ship. Take out their leader." But the humans had thought of that too. Youngjaw's command ship, the Indomitable, was protected by a screen of smaller vessels, and it was constantly moving, never staying in one position long enough to be targeted effectively. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Youngjaw watched the battle unfold with calm precision. "Status report," she ordered. "Minimal damage to our fleet," Dongwu reported. "We've destroyed 18 Council ships and damaged over 30 more. Their weapons are powerful, but their tactics are outdated. They're fighting like this is a parade formation, not a real battle." "They've been the dominant power for too long," Youngjaw said. "They forgot how to really fight. Continue the assault. Target their command ship. Let's see how brave their admiral is when he's the one in danger." The human fleet adjusted its formation, and a group of 20 ships broke away from the main force, heading straight for the Eternal Justice. They moved at incredible speed, their weapons firing constantly. Vexillara felt fear for the first time in his long military career. "Evasive maneuvers! Get us out of here!" But it was too late. The human ships surrounded his flagship, their weapons tearing through his shields like they were made of paper. Explosions rocked the Eternal Justice, and alarms blared throughout the ship. "Sir, we have to retreat," his first officer shouted. "We're taking critical damage." Vexillara wanted to argue, wanted to stand and fight, but he wasn't stupid. This battle was lost. "All ships retreat. Fall back to the edge of the system." The Council fleet turned and ran. The humans pursued them for a while, destroying a few more ships, but then they stopped. They had made their point. Youngjaw opened a channel again. "You came here to intimidate us, to show us your power. I hope you've learned something today. This is what happens when you underestimate humanity. Now leave our system and tell your council what you saw here." The remnants of the Council fleet limped away, damaged and defeated. They had entered the system with 150 ships. They were leaving with less than 100. While the battle raged in space, something else was happening on Valoris Prime. A small human ship, using the same stealth technology that had hidden the fleet, had slipped past the Council's defenses. Inside that ship was a team of soldiers led by Commander Minho, a specialist in rescue operations. "We're approaching the holding facility," Minho whispered to his team. "Remember, our job is to get our people out. No unnecessary fighting. We go in, we get them, we leave." His team nodded. They were 15 soldiers, all volunteers, all knowing this was likely a one-way mission. But when they heard that Admiral Dae-sung and his crew were being held prisoner, they hadn't hesitated. The ship landed on a quiet platform away from the main security points. The soldiers moved quickly and quietly, using intelligence that Hye-jin had managed to send out before communications were cut. She had used an old military code, something her grandfather had taught her, something the aliens didn't recognize. They found the holding cells deep in the structure. Guards were stationed outside, but they were relaxed, unprepared for an attack on their own capital world. Minho's team took them out quickly and silently. Inside his cell, Dae-sung heard the commotion. He stood up, alert, as the door suddenly opened. A human soldier stood there wearing black armor with stealth plating. "Admiral Daesung?" the soldier asked. "That's me," Daesung replied. "Commander Minho, sir. We're here to bring you home." Daesung felt a wave of relief so strong it almost made him weak. "My crew? We're getting them now, sir." Within minutes, all 5 humans were free. Heejin hugged her grandfather tightly. Taewon, Kijun, and Sumin looked tired but relieved. They were alive. They were going home, but as they moved through the facility, alarms began to sound. The guards had been discovered. Council security forces were responding. "We need to move fast," Minho said. "This way!" They ran through corridors, the rescue team protecting Daesung and his crew. Energy weapons fire lit up the hallways as council guards tried to stop them. But the human soldiers were well trained, and their equipment was superior. They fought their way to the landing platform. Taewon suddenly stopped. "Wait, I can do something here." "We don't have time," Minho said. "Give me 30 seconds, Taewon insisted. He ran to a control panel and began working furiously. His skills as an engineer came through as he accessed the facility's systems. "There, I've uploaded a virus into their defense network. It should cause chaos for a while." They made it to the ship and lifted off just as more guards arrived. Energy blasts struck the hull, but the shields held. Kijun took the controls from the pilot, his natural talent taking over. He flew the ship through a series of impossible maneuvers, dodging defensive fire from the planet's surface. "Hang on," Kijun shouted as he pushed the ship to its limits. They climbed through the atmosphere, shaking and rattling but holding together. Then they were in space, accelerating away from Valoris Prime. "We're being pursued," someone shouted.
3 council ships on our tail."
"I see them," Kijun said calmly. His hands moved over the controls with practiced ease. He dove toward a nearby moon, using its gravity to slingshot around, then activated the ship's stealth systems. The council ships lost them, confused and unable to track them. Daesung sat in the passenger compartment, watching his granddaughter and his crew. They were all alive. They were all going home. He felt tears in his eyes for the first time in years. "Sir," Minho said, sitting down next to him, "I wanted to tell you something. What you did back in that council chamber, what you said, it changed everything. You gave Earth the warning it needed. You gave us time to prepare. The home fleet destroyed the council force that came to our system." Daesung looked at him in surprise. "They attacked?" "Yes, sir. And we won. It wasn't even close. The council thought we were primitive, but we showed them the truth."